Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Simply Trade News Roundup that happens every Monday for you. You might not be listening on a Monday, but if you are, hello. I hope you had a great weekend. Hope you had, well, Halloween was a little bit past, but we're excited to have you here. It's actually it's a big week for the United States because it's election week. Lucky for you, we're not gonna, I don't want to say bore because it is not boring, but we're not going to talk about elections today. We're going to talk about something, will I say, much better. We don't have a regular episode for you scheduled, and I'm pretty excited because we have, well, first of all, I'm here with Lalo. Hi, Lalo. You already know him.
Hey, Anik. Thank you.
And then we have a very special guest, just like last week we did. Another very established woman in the industry who's also an instructor for Global Training Center. Might I say, a very loved instructor. Her name is, she's great. Her name is Trudy Wilson. Hello, Trudy.
Hi, Anik. Hey, Lalo. Great to see you guys.
Thank you so
Same
much
here.
for. Good to see you. I'm glad to see you rather than, seeing you on the screen when you have webinars, which is a little bit of a different setting. So it's great to have you here. So there's obviously a purpose for Trudy being here. First of all, she is, well, let me get into the problem first. Not the problem, the solution. So November 1st, which was last Friday, there was announced that individual custom broker license holders may begin completing qualified continuing broker education courses on January 1st, 2025. I'm going to let you take over and kind of go into what this even means and kind of lay out the whole, the picture of it all.
Okay, so thanks, Anik. Yes, that is a mouthful to kind of lay out, explain. So I'll do the best I can to explain what's going on. So anybody who's been in the industry for years have known that all these discussions have been going on year after year after year saying, hey, licensed customs brokers, we need to do continuing education. So that discussion has really been around for, back in the early 20s is when in 2020 is when it started. And so it's been in progress. It's one of those things that we've been talking about it, and other certifications have come up, but we finally got customs on board to say, yes, we will do it. Not that they were not on board before. Let me go ahead and clarify that. They've always been on board. It's just a matter of figuring out the framework of laying out this program. And here we are today that they finally laid this framework out. They did, notice of proposed rulemaking. We did the final rule implementations, and 19 CFR 111 has been updated, now laying out this continuing education requirement. So anybody that's new, I always like to say, Google it, 19 CFR 111, and you'll find that information is somewhere to get you started. Also, if you go on cbp.gov, there's a whole site on continuing broker education. But where do we fit in the picture? So in order to put this program together, what Customs decided to do is to reach out to the private sector, any one of us in the trade community, to say, hey, we need help with this program. Can you assist us with this program? And so they created a framework to start looking for accreditors. And there are certain parameters that we had to meet as accreditors, fill out an application, be able to, demonstrate to customs that we can manage this program the way they have it laid out. One of which is we have to put together a portal, which we'll talk about that later. So anyway, we've spent all this time working with customs, developing the framework, developing an SOP. And now today is November 1st. And here we are. This is the quote unquote go live date. Okay. So some of the dates in the program have been a little bit confusing. So I'm going to try to make it clearer for everybody. So what we should remember is anybody who is a licensed customs broker, starting January 1, 2025 is when you have to start earning your credits, right? There's nothing, if you're a licensed customs broker, there's really nothing for you to do between now, November 1, and the end of this year for 2024.
Should we add on here that normally customs runs on what it's called a triennial, which means every 3 years brokers and historically had to report classes that they took, but there was no formal way of doing it, correct?
Absolutely, yes. Because customs had no formal way of doing it, we had to do our triennial status report and report every 3 years that we're still a licensed customs broker and we're still practicing like we're supposed to, but there were no continuing education requirements. So now starting January 1, 2025, not only do we have to report our triennial status report, which our next one is not due till 2027, but along with that next report, we also have to report how many credits we have accumulated. Because we're coming in the middle of a triennial status reporting section, Customs has prorated how many credits we're going to have available come the 2027 triennial status report. It's actually going to be 20 credits, which really and truly what they're hoping for is when, because we're starting a little bit later in the process, so Customs is giving us a little bit more time. And so when it all rolls out, we're really going to equate to 1 credit a month. If you can get 1 credit a month, you should be able to be fine, because moving forward after this year is going to be 12 credits every year. Okay. So by the end of the triennial status period, you'll have 36 credits, but not for this first one because we're starting late. Does that make sense?
Well, okay. So now I come for a question. So these people before, was this much of a requirement to have trainings? Because I know people take trainings or credits either way because they want to stay educated, but was it a requirement?
It wasn't a requirement for customs, for licensed customs brokers.
Oh, okay.
However, the trade community took it upon themselves to actually do their own ongoing accreditation. And that's where you get your CCS credits and your CES credits, because the NEEI put those programs together. And there are other programs out there. So as a trade community, we took it upon ourselves to do it. Now Customs is also formalizing that program for customs requirements. Really and truly, one of the things that we're all going to be very familiar with going forward is the criteria that's required to get the credits, right? Not only are there going to be private sector training, they're also going to be government training. So CBP is going to have training that's going to qualify. All the partner government agencies, they're going to have training that also qualifies. So it's not just a private sector. Customs is going to actually manage the program as it relates to the partner government agencies and their training to actually give those credits to whoever attend those trainings and seminars, because they have webinars all the time. And they have, of course, all their different conferences and seminars. And I think one of the ways that they're going to do it is you're going to have like an attendance sheet and everybody has to sign in on that attendance sheet. They might modify that going forward, but that's what they're talking about now. And then what will happen is whoever is the organizer for that event, they're going to submit that attendance sheet to the continuing broker education group for customs, and each person is going to get their respective CE credits. So that's on the government side. On the private sector side, which is where we are, once you attend a training, the educator for let's say Global Training Center is an educator. So anybody that attends, let's say, our importing procedures class, anybody that attends our importing procedures class, ahead of time, you guys are going to submit that class information. Simply just a topic, a description, how many hours of presentation time that's going to be, because that's how many credits you're going to get. And once we get all that information, you'll send it to an accreditor. We're going to review it to see if we're okay, this is comfortable, it meets all the criteria. Once you have that crediting information, I should say that accrediting information, you're going to relay that information to the attendees of the class at the end of the class.
But I wanted to know, like, what is your opinion towards getting the training and getting the credit hours to really make the best use out of it and, get the best knowledge that you can get. And
one of the things that stuck out to us, even as we were talking and formulating and putting this program together, even the initial thought process of do we need it or not, right, is that every other industry has where whoever is licensed, approved, qualified, whatever it is, to practice in that industry, all has continuing education, right? Real estate agents have continuing education, doctors do, nurses do, insurance. And we were one of the only industries that didn't have it. And the reason we were hanging our hat on, we were licensed. Okay, that's all we needed. And for the longest while, I think that was the thought process until we were able to change that thought process. Because, when you read the Federal Register notice, Customs is going to say, yeah, we've always, held to our license, but we realize more and more that it's going to be better for the industry if we make it more of a formalized program for everybody to keep up with continuing education. So the platform that you use, it really doesn't matter. We have we call them activities, right? So we're making allowances for various activities as long as they meet the minimum criteria, right? So live webinars for sure are qualifying activities. For example, even online self-guided courses qualify as well as conferences and association trade days, port tours, internal company training. So there are a lot of different activities that do qualify as long as they meet the requirements. So again, going back to Lala's original question, did Customs work with us to figure out what are the offerings in the private sector? Absolutely. So we try to think about all of the different activities that you could get information that's pertinent to this program.
So, and then you started talking about this earlier, Trudy, is that between now and the end of the year, educators, i.e. Global Training Center, we are able to accredit our classes, but it does not mean that a broker can earn the points until January 1 going forward. One of the biggest confusions were inside the announcement was that, and I think you started explaining that, and I might have interrupted you and asked a different question, I guess, and we went a different route. But I saw on LinkedIn people already saying, yeah, my class is already accredited. Well, first of all, I don't know how they got accredited on October 31st when it started today, November 1. The conference that they said is happening in November, and that's another strike. So it's just a lot of confusion. I'm sure I guess to their credit, they might have misinterpreted what the announcement said. But technically, that means me, Global Training Center, I can get approved so that I can advertise that coming 2025 forward, where you're able to take my class and earn. And they start buying classes or training before the budget year at the end of the year. So they would probably want to be assured that they're going to be buying classes that are already accredited, right?
Absolutely. So to the point of the people on LinkedIn on October 31st that were saying they're accredited, no, that's not a thing, right? And one of the things that every activity that's credited is going to have is a unique ID. So unless somebody can produce that unique ID, you did not get credited. Okay. So I don't know what kind of fancy things are doing. I'm hard pressed to think that they were accredited already from yesterday.
Oh yeah, just I thank you for clarifying. We were all a little confused, but thanks that's why we have Trudy here.
Yeah, no activity in 2024, no conference or anything, even if a webinar or anything, you will not get credit for it. Credits I said it wrong. Credits will not start being issued to January 1, 2025.
Okay. And then, just going back to what you said, you had said, or this is what Lalo said, that, companies have budgets for their customs broker or for classes, and you mentioned earlier that there is going to be some free stuff that you can take advantage of. But I would say, this is just my thought. Obviously no one has to do what I'm saying. You should always go to your boss and say, hey, what is my budget? Do I have a budget? Like, how much can I use? Can I take a class, that has more technology or that has more availabilities or that, has an instructor that you really like? Trudy.
AKA Trudy.
AKA Trudy, who is also an accreditor. I'm just spitting out things here, but no, and that's maybe a good thing to keep in check, or for people to know, like to always have that conversation with your company, right?
Absolutely. there are lots of opportunities. Again, like Anik said, perfect opportunity for you to go to your boss and say, how much what's my budget for training? And I would do a nice little mix, right? Because maybe your budget's not that big and that's okay. So you pick the one Global Training Center class that you like.
Yeah.
You go to that one.
There's many to choose.
We're hoping that people will use this opportunity to expand their knowledge and deepen their knowledge on areas that they don't deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Right.
So like I said, there are tons of opportunities out there, both paid and free.
And really, it's not as extensive as a college class, okay? Like, it's not like you're going to fail, anything. It's really, it is fun. And especially if you take Trudy. I mean, we have many fun instructors, but if you take Trudy, it's definitely a fun class. Just spitting that out.
The energy as much as we can.
Yeah, we do, right? Yeah. Anywho, well, do you have any last remarks on it, Lalo or Trudy? We said really anything. We've cleared up a lot of confusion. We've gotten some tips. What else did we talk about? Really, I feel like we touched on anything. If there's anything else, please say it now.
So I'll go ahead and say, again, January 1, 2025, if you're a licensed customs broker, that's when you start getting your credits, okay? And as educators, you can get a heads up and start getting your material accredited now so that you will be ready come January 1, 2025 to start offering these classes, okay? Once you, as a licensed customs broker, once you participate in an activity, you're going to get a unique identification code for that activity. And that is key because record keeping of your attendance to these activities is part of your requirement under 19 CFR 111. And the record keeping requirement here is 6 years, not 5 like we're used to. So you have to be able to prove when you submit your triennial status report, your TSR, you have to be able to prove and show all the classes that you attended, okay, with your unique identifier. So educators, you can come to True Trade Solutions. We'll be happy to accredit all your content.
Nice going, and we'll add that on the show notes so that they can see that because everybody needs to understand. There's exactly, yeah. So everybody needs to understand that there's two parts to this. There's the accreditor and the educator. Absolutely. The accreditor is not the educator. With a little asterisk on there, okay, but anyway, but the educator.
We'll dig into that another time.
Yeah, exactly. We'll take that up at another time. But the educator is not the accreditor, and the accreditor is not the educator. So that's the way customs try to make it fair and unbiased. Let's call it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Cool.
All right.
Well, thank you, Trudy.
Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you. We will be back next Monday. Ooh, we're going to have a lot to talk about because at that point, the election is already over, which is kind of crazy. And we'll have hopefully a new president to talk about and their rules and whatnot. And very.
I just wanted to say tomorrow is election day, so go out and vote or don't complain.
I thought it's November 3rd.
Put up or shut up, right?
Put up or shut up.
Okay, we're going to leave you. Bye. Have a great day and see you next Monday. Bye.
Thank you very much for joining us. Simply Trade is brought to you by the generous contributions of Global Training Center. You can follow the show and GTC on LinkedIn or Twitter and other social networks. Make sure you check out the show notes in the description for a full rundown of today's show with all the important links. Also, make sure that you share this with a friend and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. We really like hearing from you. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to rate and review wherever you listen to this podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest in the show or would like to sponsor Simply Trade or suggest any topic you would like for us to discuss, please contact us via email at simplytrade@globaltrainingcenter.com or you can DM us on Twitter at simplytradepod. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Happy trading. Simply Trade is not a law firm or an advisor. The topics and discussions conducted by Simply Trade hosts and guests should not be considered and is not intended to substitute legal advice. You should seek appropriate counsel for your own situations. These conversations and information are directed towards listeners in the United States for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be substituted for legal advice. No listener or viewer of this podcast should act or refrain from acting on the basis of information on this podcast without first seeking legal advice from counsel. Information on this podcast may not be up to date depending on the time of publishing and the time of viewership. The content of this posting is provided as is. No representations are made that the content is error-free. The views expressed in or through this podcast are those of the individual speakers, not those of their respective employers or Global Training Center as a whole. All liability with respect to actions taken or not taken based on the contents of this podcast are hereby expressly disclaimed.